They say variety is the spice of life. And so why is it then that it's so challenging for people to enjoy the variety within humanity and enjoy the experience of including everyone's unique voices? Today, we're going to have a great conversation with Eva Medilek, the founder of Optimize Your High Performance Coaching. And we're going to hear about how we can create inclusive communities. Tune in to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our connection to that which is greater than us, the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of who we are and what we came here to do and be at this time on the planet. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love coming here week after week and having these conversations and bringing my friends. I have a lot of really cool friends. Today, you're going to meet Eva. She's awesome. And we're going to have a conversation that some of you might find uncomfortable, but we've had this conversation before on the show. And I trust that you're always getting gold nuggets from these conversations. And so take a deep breath in the belly. And let's invite all the goodness in for this conversation we're going to have about the importance of being inclusive and forming community around inclusivity and what that even means. And how do we know what that means? We might need to move beyond some filters to some understandings about life in order to truly get what being inclusive means. And right now, some of this has been made into like sort of a dirty word. But let's just be clear, that's backlash from a lot of honesty that got pumped into the culture over a number of years. And so there's a recoil. And when we do spiritual work, any kind of spiritual work, I don't care what it is, and you have a breakthrough, and you get to the other side of things and you start to understand it and you feel better and you have light and you're like, wow, I get it. And you leave the medicine ceremony. And then the next week, some of that covering has come back and there's a recoil and you're like being angry all of a sudden when you decided you were going to be peaceful, and you're lashing out when you decided that you were going to be responsive rather than reactive. This is what happens. It's part of our human nature, that as we expand into a new understanding, there's usually a contraction. So culturally, I feel like we're having a little contraction from all that expansion. And we need to push in a little bit, resist that contraction going all the way, and push back and hold the line so that the next expansion can come in. It's kind of like the waves come to shore and then they recede, but then they come back. They don't stop coming to the shore. They keep coming. And so we need to keep coming with this conversation until it, reaches all of the sandcastles and brings them back to the ocean, where the ocean can put everything into right relationship. So I love the fact that Eva is here. Eva Medilek, the founder of Optimize Your High Performance Coaching, is a multi-award-winning executive leadership trainer, #1 international best-selling author, facilitator, renowned international speaker, and successful real estate investor. And she has a signature human relationship style assessment that helps clients identify what's sabotaging their performance so they can achieve higher levels of personal and professional success. And as we approach this really important annual recognition of the importance of awareness being brought to conversations of inclusivity, we have Juneteenth right around the corner. And for those of you who may not know, Juneteenth is actually a celebration of the day that African American people finally were actually free. It wasn't like right away, right? The proclamations were made and everything happened. It was a long time before there was actually freedom. And that's the celebration of Juneteenth. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important and why it's important to keep reminding ourselves to be inclusive and to listen. And so I'm looking forward to the conversation, Eva. It's, I'm actually going to Juneteenth in Atlanta with Akeem. So we're going to be part of the Juneteenth celebration there. And I'm really excited to go.
Oh, how exciting. How exciting.
Yeah. So
I grew up not knowing anything about Juneteenth until I moved to Berkeley, California, which is very, very diverse. And, they celebrate everything. I was like, well, they don't have snow days. I grew up on the East Coast. So it was like International Women's Day, Juneteenth, Indigenous Peoples. And like they had it all. And I'm like, oh my God, look at all these holidays I never really knew about. But, what's interesting about Juneteenth is even though the Emancipation Proclamation had been out there and the slavery was ended, quote unquote, there was the state of Texas, bless their hearts.
Bless their hearts.
Kept that information from their enslaved people. And so Juneteenth really was when kind of that final state, the final enslaved people found out that, yes, they had been indeed freed for a couple of years now. And just they were the last to find out about it, the last to be invited to the party. And, when I look at what's happening in the world today and how a lot of freedoms are being rescinded, people are being called out and discriminated against because of their country of origin, their color of their skin, their gender, just in so many ways, and even their physical abilities and mental abilities. It's like, what in the actual is happening here? What is going on? How is this our world today in 2025?
Yeah. And I've often wondered, like, why am I in Texas? But then as I look at politics, I go, oh, that's why. There's a lot of spiritual community in Texas, probably for a really good reason. As you mentioned, last state to adopt and to recognize emancipation, and first one to try to take it back again.
Take it back again. Yeah. Oh, the irony.
Last in, first out. It's like, there's just so many questions about how to be that kind, generous, conscious, loving, accepting leader in our lives and in our communities, right? That we know that we came here to be in the face of such horrendous behaviors, outcomes, laws, outlooks,
and untruths.
Perspectives.
I would add untruths to that. The untruth or the misrepresentation of the truth of what diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging actually is. And it seems that our political climate is promoting a lot of fear mongering around what DEIB actually means. And I had launched this course last year and I just did a soft launch, and then the election happened. And all of the rolling back and the changes. And it really started with them removing affirmative action, a few years ago as well from the colleges. And I really had to keep from giving up on it all. One of the things I discovered about myself in my own relationship style assessment is that I have more of a yo-yo personality style, which means I get really excited about possibility. And when my expectations aren't met, I get so disappointed and discouraged that I feel like giving up. So there's a lot of up and downs and highs and lows. So I always tell my clients, I was like, literally, there's not a day in my life that I don't feel like giving up. But just because I have the emotion doesn't mean I have to be the emotion. And that's what it is with diversity and inclusion, inclusive communication, inclusive communities, is that if it's to be, it's up to me. Regardless of the laws out here, they have laws against the language. So we use different language, but we still can be about creating inclusive communities. I call them, collaborative environments, differing opinions, looking at multiple versions and points of view. It's still the same work. And it's up to all of us as individuals, just like we were taught in kindergarten, to share.
Yeah. And
play well with others, right?
Play well with others, and which requires listening.
Yes. Yes. Listening is a critical leadership skill. And really great leaders understand that emotional and psychological safety that are promoted when you are a good listener, that's the key component to increasing productivity, to helping growth, to fueling success. And the more skilled you are at listening, the better you're able to build relationships, the better you are able to build trust. But Carrie, listening is one of the toughest skills to master.
It is, because it has to get into our filters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we actually have to be willing to listen and understand something that's not our direct experience.
Mm-hmm. That's not part of our lived experience. And listening also demands that we put aside our assumptions. You can call it conscious or unconscious biases, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it assumptions, since you're in Texas and we don't want to get you in trouble by using the word bias. But it demands that we put aside our assumptions of what we think we know and understand. And it demands that we open ourselves up to being curious, to learn more, to get additional insight, to consider differing viewpoints, to be curious, and to ask questions that help us deepen understanding.
I just got this insight I want to share. It's like, because I am part of the privileged class, right? So because I'm in this white presenting body, right? And I've had that experience of feeling like the America thing is like, well, it's just our thing. It's just everybody's thing. And I don't know, I used to think like, it's just everybody experiences it exactly the same way, just like me. And I had that idea. But what happens when you become a safe person, meaning that you're not trying to take your belief system and shove it down somebody else's throat, but you actually get curious about the other person and you listen to what they're saying. What happens is people will start to open up to you. And that is a moment of a little bit of wobble in that story, right? That everyone's experiencing the same reality. And that can be scary for some people. And I think what happened when all of this information came out, for many people in the privileged position in this society, were kind of shocked because they never thought to look to see what other people experience. We're kind of shocked that, hey, not everybody thinks this is great. Not everybody thinks this is wonderful, what's going on. Not everyone's experience of this is wonderful. And it was kind of like this big shock that, like, what do you mean we don't all feel and think the same way when we sing our national anthem or our 4th of July? You mean we don't all think the same way about this experience? No, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that is shocking because it destabilizes your perception.
It made things wonky and wobbly, didn't it? Like, And, from people who did have a different experience in celebrating the 4th of July or singing our national anthem, there was this like, how could you not know? So
this is for all of us. This is everybody.
How could you not know that not everybody shared that experience? How did you not know that the land of the free and the home of the brave, where slavery was being enacted, didn't mean that free was free for everyone. And so there was this huge disconnect that came to light. And when we started, really taunting the importance of listening, the problem is that so many people that experience privilege listen to fix, listen to problem solve, listen to respond or react or feel that we need to have the answers. And it's okay to just listen to learn and not say anything, not even say you understand, because there's no way you can understand. You can have an understanding, but most of the time it's just like, wow, I can't imagine what that's like. End of story. But when people that have a physical challenge in their abilities or in a wheelchair or maybe don't have a limb, me being able-bodied saying, oh, I understand, doesn't land right. And so it's the same with a lot of different lived experiences with loss of life. I didn't understand what it felt like to lose a parent until my mom died. So I couldn't say that to somebody prior to that experience that I had. Oh, I understand that must be sad. It's a different experience for everyone. People grieve differently. So we get to just acknowledge someone's lived experience without necessarily having to understand it fully. And that's the power of listening, is to create that safe space for understanding by acknowledging what the other person has shared, asking questions to help you understand further, curiosity questions. I have this framework that I teach in my course and in my online trainings and workshop. It's a really simple, inclusive listening framework that's called LAPI. And it's listen, acknowledge. You acknowledge by paraphrasing. That's the P. And the I is inquiring, the power of asking questions that not only deepen your understanding, but also ask questions to move the conversation forward. Because, we talked a little bit before how we can get mired in the circle of complaining about why things are not fair, and why this isn't. And then you have somebody, what is it? Misery loves company. And we get in that cycle. But being able to move forward, like, well, what can we do? What are the next steps? How can we do better next time? What would you like to experience next time? And get into that space of collaboration and letting people be able to advocate for what they need and creating, I always call it creating win-wins. We may not necessarily agree with other people's perspectives, but we can move forward to creating collaborative agreements moving forward. And that's the power of listening.
Yeah. And in order to do that well, we have to choose to move out of a couple of paradigms that have been on the planet for quite a while. One of them is the disempowerment triangle. So victim, rescuer, perpetrator, that whole model is going to stick us right in defensive posture. We're not going to be able to listen if we're looking to see who's to blame, right? As soon as blame enters the conversation is done. And I think that's what happened was that a lot of people, because they're mired in this disempowerment matrix, felt they were being blamed. And maybe some people were blaming because people are all in this kind of conversation on the planet.
Oh, everybody was all up in their emotions.
I mean, it's like, if it's a conversation of blaming, then defenses are going to be up and you're not going to get anywhere with it. So what if we just go, it's nobody's fault. It just is. So if it's nobody's fault, it just is. We inherited it. What now? Well, what now is we listen to see how different people are experiencing this current situation so that maybe there'll be some realization. Maybe there'll be some new ideas. Maybe just in the listening of it, the sacred witnessing of it is enough to kind of heal things that are in the body because it's embodied too. It's not like every body is unique, right? I mean, that's part of the issue here also is that the ancestral experience lives on in each person's body. So we got to slow down and listen to our bodies.
Stop, drop, and roll, and kind of breathe before we react. Harvard professor Chris Argyris, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, created this ladder of inference where we take the facts and then we kind of form our opinion and our thought about the facts, which may or may not be true because now we're putting assumptions in there and we're creating a story and then we're responding or reaction based on the story we made up in our head. That's where the blame stuff that you were talking about happens. And we're climbing higher and higher up the ladder. What he says we need to do is get back down to what do we know are the facts. What just Dragnet. I know some young people don't know Dragnet, but just the facts, ma'am, right?
Just the facts.
Just the facts. Get curious about what the facts are. Ask questions based on the facts, not the story you're making up about the facts. I was coaching a group of aspiring leaders for Fidelity early this morning, and we were doing some role plays of some situations where we could practice this framework, if you will. And one guy came and he said, oh, I have a story. I had, this conversation with my wife on Sunday. We were going to church. And when we got home later that day or the next day in the kitchen at breakfast, she asked me, were you on time to church? Did you get to church on time? And so he got really defensive. And I was like, why are you asking me if I was on time? Like he made up the story that she was asking if he was on time to berate him for being late. And so we role played it. And I was like, okay, let's do it with this framework, right? And so when I was playing the wife, I was like, were you on time for church on Sunday? And so what he did was, oh, I'm curious, what's the reason why you're asking me that? And then I said, because I had my solo in the beginning and I don't think I did very well. I wanted to know what you thought if you were there in time to catch it. It changed the whole energy, the whole mood. And that was the true story. That's why she was asking him, because she was in the choir and she didn't think her performance was well. and she wanted his opinion. But he was starting an argument, feeling defensive because she only asked, did you show up? But, that was the question. And if he needed more information, ask more questions to get more answers. But we grow up in a society that teaches us to have the right answers for everything, or we get punished, or we fail school, or we can't graduate. So we always think we have to have the right answers. And that keeps us out of curiosity to ask better questions.
Yeah. And it also makes us, if we're wrong, sometimes in a lot of families, there's big consequences for being wrong, which means nobody wants to not have the answers, but you can't. From a white body, folks, you cannot have the answer for a black body. You don't know. Just like from a black body, you can't have the answer for a white body because you don't know. You only know what you think. And also the ancestral memory. I feel like it's like a story that just continues, right?
Yeah.
We're writing the story not only for ourselves, but we burst into an ancestral story. And we were part of this ocean, this river of ancestry that's running through our DNA and our bodies. And they're talking to us constantly. And they're saying, I have this trauma, I have this pain, I have this belief, I have this fear, I have this wisdom, I have this beauty, I have this gift, I have all of that's all mixed in, And so if we're operating from sort of defensive posture, we're only going to be pulling out the painful things. But if we're listening at a deeper level, we can also pull the wisdom out and we can pull the beauty. And what if it was like, I love the gene keys for this reason, Eva, because I love personality systems, but anyway, and I love your system because I've actually used Eva's system because we used it at the Evolutionary Business Council. It was great. But I love the gene keys because what it does is it tells you have a map of your soul. And when you put in your time and date of birth, you get this map that's one page and it has all the shadows and gifts and cities that you are here to experience in this life. And when you look at your map, at least when I looked at mine, I went, that's me. I always go into judgment and then I have opinions and I have expectations and then I get stressed out and then, and it's like, it's my map. And so we all have a map, not only a map, but an ancestry. And so isn't it?
And when you know yourself at a deeper level, you're able to grow yourself at a higher level.
You are. And then it gets like, wouldn't it be more interesting to just get to know each other? Like, to know ourselves and then to know each other, like, oh, wow, you have this African-American ancestry. What happened for you in your ancestry? What goes on in your body when you hear this story or you have this experience? What is it like? That's interesting. That's
curiosity. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what many people, that's all that's been being invited, you guys. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, plus stop torturing people just because they look different than you. That too.
There's that part. But I find that as human beings, we are so hell-bent on being right about what we think and our opinions and what we feel are facts.
It's true.
And we need to be more focused on, how do I get it right?
Because we're here to learn, ultimately.
How do I get it right? I just want to get it right. I don't need to be right, but I want to get it right.
I like that. I want to get it right. And getting it right might take 1,000 conversations.
Yeah. But if you're 1% better today than yesterday, you're moving in the right direction. It's a journey. It's a process. We're so hardwired from all the ancestral history and our own history that it's like a rubber band. We may stretch out of our comfort zone and hey, we did it today. But unless we keep that tension and moving forward, we're going to snap right back. And that's okay too. It's just recognizing, being aware and like, next time I get to do better. Because, for me, being a high performance coach is how to consistently show up as your best self at home, at work, in your communities, as a leader, as a transformational leadership coach that focuses on high performance. It really is the improvement without it costing you your health, your well-being, and your relationships, because it's a very holistic approach to leadership. It's just, oh my God, let's just be good humans.
Let's just be good. I mean, what does that mean though? I would say there's so many aspects. You mentioned one aspect I'd like you to go into a little bit, because when, let's say we have high expectations of ourselves to perform, right? To have the answers, to be right. And then we're faced with something we clearly don't understand. That, I have a Pulp Fiction quote in my mind. That's pride effing with you. It's like,
yeah, the ego. We got to set the ego aside. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's about getting it right, not always being right. I found that the most high performing leaders involve their team, the people that they're leading in the creation of whatever it is they're doing. People support what they create. This command and control thing, as we're seeing, is not working for anybody. It's not working for anybody. But when you have collaboration in the creation and everybody feels that they've been heard, in the new policy, in how we're going to move this project forward, in the da 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 with the widgets or whatever it is you do for work, and you've gotten your voice heard, you're more apt to give more of your energy and your effort and your best performance for something that you had a part in creating, as opposed to, you know what? If you've had children or you've been a children, it's much harder to tell a child to clean their room than when they decide that they want their room clean for themselves. They're more apt to do it. But you get kind of a half-ass, job when you're like, clean your room, just with anything. That's leadership.
Yeah. And it's a difference because when you try to shove something down someone's throat or you try to force them into it, you could use that. And that model has been used in this country over Native American people, African American people, all kinds of people, you guys. It's been that forced you to do this the way these people want you to do it. And when you have that, and women too, if you're in a woman's body, you have been told to be pretty, pleasing, and polite, So when we're forced to be a certain way, we don't get authentic energy. We don't get authentic commitment. We don't get authentic drive and participation. We get cowering sort of, okay, well, I'm going to just have to do this because this person is really scary and, I got to survive this whole thing. So I'm going to give a performance, but that's not real. And what I think many of us who have been waking up, what we want is real. We want authentic. We want transparent, vulnerable, connected. And that requires us to relinquish. We always have to let go of something in order to evolve. And so, we have to let go of telling and forcing and fixing and thinking we have the answer to that's colonization, by the way. I have the answer for all of your problems. It's in this book here. Please read it, and it's the only book and the only path. This is colonization. Speak English. This is the world's language. That's colonization. We got to learn, everybody has their own way, and there's beauty in every tradition. There's beauty in every group of people that ever walked the face of the earth.
We don't need to eat the same meal for breakfast, lunch, dinner, 365 days a year. And, when you're forcing people to lose variety.
I like variety.
Variety. That's a good one. Yeah, I'm going to start implementing that one. Variety is a spice of life. Variety is a spice of life. That makes things so much more colorful and interesting and fun and unique and special. And we get different experiences in life to learn other people's point of view that is different from what we've never. I mean, how many times have you heard a different point of view? And like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And it opened up a new pathway for your creativity.
Yeah. And you might think I have judgments, y'all. It's not that I'm not, because I told you I have judgment in my chart and opinion. So clearly I go through this, but I was raised in New England. Okay. But I was born in Texas, but I was raised in New England. And then I went to California and made my way back to Texas. And so I come with some judgments about Texas. Okay. Because I lived in all these other places that view Texans as ignorant and, rednecks and, all this kind of stuff. So I have my own judgments and I'm like, oh, ignorant. But when I went and listened, I was on Instagram one day and I was listening to this cowboy, this guy, this Texan guy with a cattle ranch. And I was listening to what he had to say and I was like, this guy's totally in his heart. This guy's totally connected. Oh, wow. I really like what he's saying about we need family farms. We need to support real life farmers in this country and get organic food on their land from actual farmers serving up our food, and treating cattle right and free range and all this. I was like, I like this guy. So we can actually learn if we're willing to expand past our ideas that we defend as if they're part of who we are. But that's only if we formed an identity based in attachment, 5 levels of attachment, Don McGowan Ruiz, y'all. But 5 levels of attachment. When we really believe our beliefs are who we are, the 5th level is fanaticism. And we think that if somebody challenges our belief, they're killing us. And then we act to defend our lives as if someone's idea, a perspective could kill us.
That you see that a lot in religion, for sure. I grew up with, I don't want to say, fanatical religious mother. No, Bible thumping is probably a better description. And, we're teaching me to dislike people who were different, believed different from me, especially in the LGBTQ community. And it just felt so unnatural then. But again, the fear, you're going to go to hell. Like all that stuff is ingrained in you from a young child. And most of my clients are from that community. It's always been an attraction. I've always been pulled towards that community. I have such a big heart for that community. Haven't had a lived experience in that community, but, between puppies and the LGBTQ plus community, those are the communities that are getting my money, animal rescue. And because I have such a heart for that community based on the fact that I was raised that they were less than and that they were all going to hell. And so that just made me love them more. I don't know if that what it is. And so I so connected, and it was just like, oh, I remember, and this is just me being funny, asking one of my children if they would please be gay because I want a gay child. And I'm like, Ma, that's not how it works. I'm like, I know, but wouldn't it be lovely? Just like grandma would still love you, and it would be such a good lesson for her.
I think it's that people that have gone through challenge in belonging, they've found something in themselves that's really beautiful that reminds us of like a really deep truth in life. And then being around them helps us remember it, right? And so maybe that's why I tend to like African-American people. I tend to like Native American people. I tend to like brown-skinned people because I feel like there is something in the humanity there, and definitely LGBTQ. There's humanity there happening. Mm-hmm. And not that I don't also love all people, because I do, but it's the people who have access to their soul, to their kindness, to their understanding, their compassion, their empathy. These are the people that I really want to surround myself with, and I learn so much from. So it's reciprocal.
Yeah, they don't have a level of privilege that, white cisgendered folks tend to have. I mean, just being cisgendered in itself is a level of privilege, and, to be a male, white, cisgendered person, that's privilege in this world. So they don't really get the connection of not belonging, having the struggles, what it's like to come out, what it's like to be discriminated against. And I think what's happening in that white, male, cisgendered community is when diversity, equity, and inclusion were thrust back into the forefront. It's always been there, but when it was really in the news all day, every day, they started to feel discriminated against.
Mm-hmm. And like they're getting that opposite experience, which is needed.
Yeah. And they're fighting back against that with a vengeance. Like if you would only fight for all people the way you're fighting for yourselves, that would be something to behold. But, they're feeling threatened, and they're feeling their privilege being reduced. And I think that's why we have leadership in our government now that is what it is because unfortunately that's hidden resentment of different voices is coming up loud and strong, and it's making it okay.
True. And I also want to just throw a little out there that, because I have 2 sons that are white, cisgendered, and boys, but young men. But what I've noticed, especially my elder son, is a lot of deep shadow work. And because of the communities that I engage with, I've seen a lot of other white males in those groups too, struggling, recovering from addictions and alcoholism and like these patterns of disconnect, right? Disconnect from one's spirit, from one's soul, from one's ancestry, from one's body. And there's been a displacement, right? Everyone's been displaced in America, unless you're Native American. Everybody else has been displaced here. So that displacement theme, along with all of the other things, I feel for many people in the privileged class have also resulted in deep addictions and food addictions and just so many, in Texas, especially, I see that there's a lot of obesity here. And it's that resistance, right? It's that, what do I do with this ancestral body inheritance with what I know in the collective now? And how do I love myself through that? Right?
I was going to say something very similar. There is a lot of ancestral trauma and truth and history that the privileged class has had to grapple with, especially with a heightened awareness around the history and wanting the history to be out there, that they're resisting because it doesn't put their ancestors in a favorable light. And internally, they've got to be carrying that burden of shame and embarrassment and not knowing how to deal with. Most people don't need courage. They need to get over fear of embarrassment, because embarrassment is a strong thing. And so to have that in your bones, like, yes, my great grandfather had slaves and had a plantation and all of that, or however far back it goes, whether it's beating people, murdering people, starving people, to have that live in your bones cannot be easy as well.
And I think there's been a gaslighting of that, a disconnection from that history, even in the own family line, so that to try to put it in the past somehow.
And bury it.
It lives on in the body. It doesn't, until it's healed, until it's reconciled, it lives on in the body. We have to move forward by going into that pain, into that judgment, that shame, that guilt, all of those feelings. That's the path of liberation, is to feel those things in community.
And deal with it.
And deal with it.
Because Germany did that. Germany did that very well with that whole, the Holocaust and the whole Nazi and the Hitler thing. I mean, I spend my summers in Germany, so I see a lot. They're not afraid to talk about it. They've got memorials to it. They've got history around it. My sister-in-law lives right where the wall was. And so there's little bricks commemorating it. They don't want that history to be forgotten so that it's not repeated.
Exactly. And the only way we don't repeat history is by remembering and working through the feelings and healing ourselves of it, and healing in community with each other, and listening, like you said, listening. And the listening isn't easy, you guys. It's not always easy. Sometimes when you listen to a perspective from your body, if your body, let's say my body is a white presenting, I have ancestors that have been here in this continent since the American Revolution. Okay. And some of them in the South. So yes, some of my ancestors engaged, right, in owning slaves, right, or telling people that they were enslaved. And to be with my partner who's African American, his body has people who are African that were stolen from Africa and brought over here to be enslaved. We both have Native Americans, so I think that's our common link. We can talk to each other on that frequency. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a painful thing to recognize it, but the thing is, love gets you through. And I remember MLK is one of my, I put him all over my house because I'm I want to be like MLK. But he said, hate is too great a burden to bear. I choose love. And think about that. Our ancestors, those of us on either side, I guess, who didn't choose love, they chose hate. That's a great burden to bear. And yeah, it comes out in the body 7 generations later. This is 7 generations.
Yeah.
So the sins of the father revisited.
I have a book not from Martin Luther King Jr., but it's called A Testament of Hope. Do you have that book?
No.
It's yay thick, but it's all of his writings and speeches. And, I have the ambitious attempt I was trying to complete it in a year, because it's a lot of pages and it's a lot of tiny print, and my eyes are not as good as they used to be. But some of his writings just bring you to tears, just what he had to go through, which is almost very similar to what a lot of our immigrant population in the United States is dealing with right now. You want to get the criminals out. Yeah. A 9-year-old, come on, the stuff that they're doing, students on campus. Anyway, but just to read his writings, to read his writings, the letters he wrote while he was in jail, all of the things. And it's in kind of this chronological order of what was being experienced. It's a good history book to have in your library.
I want that.
A Testament of Hope.
A Testament.
I heard about this book from a mentor of mine, Brendon Burchard, who I've actually been certified under, and he's a really powerful world-class coach. And when he said he was reading it to learn more about him. I was like, I'm going to read it too. And then I saw what an ambitious undertaking that was. But, I need to give myself space and grace because it's a lot to be in the trenches with him as he's writing this stuff. And so, could probably read a few pages and need a week off and then go back into it kind of thing. But it's really, really powerful. And just how somebody like that, human with all of his flaws, could be so dedicated to trying to get it right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's iconic. And when you focus on that bigger mission like that, that's the legacy. And so not that we need a reason, but let's think 7 generations from today, hopefully there's still humanity on the planet. You guys, like this being able to listen to one another and to love each other, this has to happen in order for all the other decisions to happen that keep us on this planet. So I really invite you to check out the offering here, the Inclusive Community Blueprint. And Eva has put this together for you. It's beautiful. And it's got a special on it right now for Juneteenth. So if you're listening to this, hop on it because it's only good through June 19th, 2025, by the way. And if you're listening to this sometime in the future, get it anyway. It's worth the money. Prepare yourself. Don't argue.
What I love about this is, I created this because I saw the handwriting on the wall that a lot of these initiatives were going to be taken away. But I also saw that a lot of the initiatives in the beginning were very performative and perfunctory and weren't genuine. So I created this for people who were really committed to being better and wanting to get it right for themselves and for the type of leaders they want to be in their lives and in their businesses. So that's why I created a self-study course that gives you kind of tools and framework because we're not taught how to listen. There's a way to listen. I think people call it active listening, but the way that I'm showing you how to listen is to really listen, to learn, and to move conversations forward. Listen in a way that is collaborative. And this is how to listen also when you fundamentally disagree with what another person is saying. To listen when you're in the middle of a conflicting conversation. These are very hard to do when your emotions are running high, when people are saying things that differ vastly from your values. How do you still stay low on the ladder of inference and really move conversations forward while still being able to disagree? So I think it's really powerful to have these skills as human beings in life. And so my intention was to create something that you could get instruction on, regardless of what your company is or isn't doing, regardless of what your company is or isn't paying for, or what you have access to. And to really take these powerful lessons, if you were, and implement them in your own life, because you've got to be about it, not just talk about it. And I found that the way it was set up and the way everybody was going about DEI, it was just trending like the latest pair of jeans at that time. And so I wanted to do something that was more granular, more genuine, more based in just a foundation of basic principles, if you will, that will help you in your leadership just be better leaders for everybody, whether it's multi-generational teams, multicultural teams, different genders or non-gender conforming, just to really be a leader for everyone, not just for people who agree with you or have your life experience.
Yeah, I love that. And I honor also what you said about the DEI, the first round in our lifetimes that we went through. I think it was a release valve, it released a lot of feelings, a flood of feelings. But what we need to do now is, like you said, we need to be in it for the long haul. We need to be, those of us who choose, I am choosing, to be committed to it, whether or not it's a mandate, whether or not there's a company policy, whether or not there's a government rule. And even if there's a government rule against it, then I would still be in resistance to that and saying, I'm doing it anyway because I'm a peacemaker and that's what I'm here to do. And, if we want to be peacemakers, we have to choose to listen. That's just the only way. You can't have diplomacy without listening. It doesn't work.
Well, yeah, people are trying though.
We're going to tell you about the stink, and then I'm going to tell you what to say, and then I'm going to tell you how to act. And
speaking of that, I just came out of a mastermind, a Think and Grow Rich mastermind. It was like 9 or 10 weeks. And every day for the 9 or 10 weeks, I wrote the self-confidence formula. And there's a piece of it I just want to read. And this is Napoleon Hill in the 1930s. You know, don't get any more white and privileged than that. But one of the things he says in Think and Grow Rich in the self-confidence formula, I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, because I know that a negative attitude toward others can never bring me success.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a long formula here that I've written out every day, but every time I wrote it, it cemented, listen, that book is one of the most patriarchal books written out there. But I went in it with an attitude, let me extrapolate what I can from myself and it's like a buffet. If I didn't like mushrooms, I'm not going to eat the mushrooms. Okay, I'm going to move over to the chicken or whatever it is. And that's kind of how I went about that book and looked at how I could apply it to me as a African-American female for a book that's basically written for a white, cis male, older generation, if you will. And when I got to that line, I'm like, that's really, really powerful. And there's a lot in that self-confidence formula, but it's recognized, even though it wasn't equal for all people, they know that hatred, envy, jealousy, and cynicism have no part in success. You've got to develop a love for all humanity.
You have to develop a love for all of humanity, people. Yes, we do. We must. This is our mastery program. So welcome to your life, the time on earth where we learn to love each other and we work on relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I hope you all will check out the Inclusive Community Blueprint on my website, evamedilek.com/ICB. Very easy to get to it.
Yep.
And the discount is Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, 2025.
Juneteenth, 2025. Just put that in the coupon code and you'll get $300 off the course.
That's amazing, you guys. So go do it. Go sign up and do it now, because that's only gives you like a few days. If you're listening to this right when it comes out, you have a few days to go get that deal. And if you miss the deal, just get it anyway. Like I said, come on, just go get it and do it anyway. And we love you. Please join us in this mission of peace. Okay, I'm going to give everybody kisses, and I welcome you to join me, Eva, if you'd like to give out some Reiki kisses. And thank you guys for listening, staying all the way to the end, and leave us a like, a comment, a share, wherever you are, wherever you find us. We love you. Let us know you're out there, because sometimes there's a message in the bottle is like, hello, is anybody out there? Did you hear us? So let us know. Okay, and here's your kisses. We love you. Here we go. Love you guys. See you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.